Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Pesachim. We are up to Perek Tet, Mishna Yud Aleph. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam Began Eden, Amen. Having discussed in the last Mishnah what to do if the Pesach offerings of two groups became mixed up, our Mishnah explains what to do if the Pesachs of two individuals became mixed up. The Mishnah begins, Shnaim shelitarvu pischehem, two people whose Pesach offerings became mixed up. For example, Reuven and Shimon each designated an animal for his Pesach, but they did not register any other people on it. It was then forgotten which animal was Reuven's and which one was Shimon's. The Mishnah says they should do as follows. Now this solution involves several steps. The first step is Zeh moshech lo echad v'zeh moshech lo echad. This one takes for himself one animal, and that one takes for himself the other animal, meaning each person randomly chooses one of the two animals. The second step is as follows. Zeh mimaneh imo echad min hashuk. This one then registers one person from the street to join with him on his offering. V'zeh mimaneh imo echad min hashuk. And that one registers another person from the street to join with him on his offering. There are now two groups of two people each. Reuven chooses Levi and tells him, you are hereby registered on my original Pesach, whichever one it is. Shimon chooses Yehuda and says the same to him. Therefore, each offering now has two people registered on it, wherever it may be. And the Rav explains the point of adding another person to each Pesach is to make it possible to go through the type of exchange mentioned in the previous Mishnah without either Pesach being left temporarily without an owner, as the Mishnah now explains. Now the original owners then each instruct their new partner to stand next to the offering that he has chosen. The third step is as follows. Zeh ba etzel zeh. This original owner then comes over to that Pesach that the other owner chose. V'zeh ba etzel zeh. And that original owner comes over to this Pesach, meaning each of the original owners is now standing by the Pesach that the other original owner chose, together with the other one's new partner. Now Reuven is now standing next to Yehuda, which is Shimon's partner, and Shimon is now standing next to Levi, Reuven's partner. V'chachem omrim, and the original owners each say as follows to that new partner: Im sheli hu Pesach zeh. If this Pesach that we are standing by is really mine, which means that I and your partner have actually switched Pesachs, and this is not your Pesach, meaning since Yehuda is Shimon's partner, if the Pesach in front of him is not Shimon's, it's not Yehuda's either. Yadecha mishuchot mishelcha v'nimneta al sheli. Then you are withdrawn from your Pesach and are now registered on this one that is mine, meaning Yehuda withdraws from his and Shimon's Pesach and registers on Reuven's Pesach. Levi likewise withdraws from his and Reuven's Pesach and registers on Shimon's. V'im shelcha hu Pesach zeh. And if this Pesach that we are standing by is yours, which means that I and your partner happen to pick our original Pesach, yadai mishuchot misheli v'nimneta al shilcha, then v'nimneti al shilcha, then I am withdrawn from my original Pesach and am registered on this one that is yours, meaning Reuven withdraws from his own Pesach and registers onto Yehuda's Pesach, and Shimon withdraws from his own Pesach and registers onto Levi's. In either case, there are now two new groups, Reuven and Yehuda in one group and Shimon and Levi in the other. This way each pair is registered for certain on the Pesach they now have. Whether or not Reuven and Shimon actually switch their Pesach does not matter anymore. In either case, the two groups, Reuven and Yehuda in one group and Shimon and Levi in the other, they are for certain registered on the Pesach that they now have. And that is in a Perek Ted Mishnah Yud Aleph. We begin now Perek Yud Mishnah Aleph. This chapter deals with the mitzvot that are observed on the first night of Pesach and the second night outside of Eretz Yisrael, what we call the Seder night. The Mishnah begins Arvei Pesachim Samuch LeMincha. In the afternoon before the first night of Pesach, close to the time of Mincha. Now Mincha begins 9.5 hours after the start of the day. For example, if the day begins at 6 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m., the time of Mincha is 3:30 p.m. Now the Mishnah's words close to Mincha mean about half an hour before that time, meaning 9 hours after the start of the day. So in our example, 3 p.m. Now we refer here to the short Mincha period, Mincha Ktana, which begins when the afternoon Tamid was usually burned on the altar 9.5 hours after the start of the day. It should not be confused with the long Mincha period, Mincha Gdolah, which begins 1/2 hour after midday when it first becomes permitted to offer the afternoon Tamid. Now, an hour in this context is 1/12 of the daylight period, Sheot Zmaniyot, 1/12, or depending on how you calculate, which can be longer or shorter than a standard hour, depending on the time of the year. So again, the Mishnah says, Arvei Pesachim samuch lemincha, in the afternoon before the night of Pesach, close to the time of Mincha, half an hour before Mincha Ktana, lo yochal adam ad shetichshach. A person may not eat a large amount of food until it becomes dark, meaning the time for fulfilling the mitzvah of eating matzah, so that he will have an appetite for the mitzvah, for the matzah. Now, performing a mitzvah with enthusiasm is a hidur mitzvah, a beautification of a mitzvah. One is only prohibited to eat a satisfying portion of food. Bread satisfies in a relatively small amount. However, all types of bread are forbidden at this time. In any event, chametz is prohibited from the beginning of the 5th hour, as we learned earlier in chapter 1, Mishnah 4, and matzah is prohibited the entire day. Rather, the Mishnah refers to other foods such as fruits and vegetables. Since they are not as satisfying as bread, one is not forbidden to eat them unless he fills his stomach with them. Now, at certain points in the Seder, we must recline as we eat or drink, which was the practice of nobility in previous times, in order to demonstrate that we are free people. Now, it is obligatory to recline when fulfilling the mitzvot of eating matzah and drinking the 4 cups of wine. Whoever reclines when he eats and drinks at other points in the Seder is worthy of praise, as the Rambam writes in Ilchot Chametz U'Matzah, chapter 7, halacha 8. The Mishnah writes, Va'afilu ani shebiYisrael lo yochal ad sheyasev. Even a poor man in Israel may not eat at the Seder unless he reclines. Although a poor man does not usually recline when he eats, and he may not even have a couch or pillows on which to lean, he is nevertheless included in the obligation. He reclines on his bench or chair. The Mishnah continues now with another law that pertains to a poor man. The community officials who distribute charity may not give him less than 4 cups of wine, so that he can fulfill the mitzvah de rabbanan rabbinic obligation of drinking 4 cups of wine at the Seder. They must certainly supply him with matzah and food for the festival. The sages require us to drink 4 cups of wine during the Seder, corresponding to the 4 expressions of redemption and rescue mentioned in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 6, Pesukim 6 and 7, which are Ve'otzeti, Ve'itzalti, Ve'ga'alti, Ve'lakachti. Va'afilu min hatamchui, the Mishnah concludes, and if necessary, they supply him even from the charity plate of source of charity that is reserved for the poorest of the poor. Meaning that the tamchui, literally the plate, was a special charity fund that was distributed to those who were so poor they did not have enough food for 2 meals, meaning the amount of food eaten in one day, as the Mishnah says in Masechet Peah, chapter 8, Mishnah 7. But our Mishnah says that they have to give him they cannot give him less than 4 cups of wine, even if they have to take money from the charity plate that is reserved for the poorest of the poor. And that is in Rabotai today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.